The movie begins with a young couple, Greg and Heather, who want to try some shark dive activities here on the Tucker Experience. Dave appears and says that Tucker is now on holiday and they are out of luck. However, at that moment Bruce Tucker arrives and makes an exception for this young couple to experience deep dive with sharks. They board the boat and Tucker recounts that when he was 7 years old, he was swimming with a big white shark that got him, but he managed to survive. Heather is scared of this experience, especially when she sees a live shark and says she can't do this. Tucker approaches to help her by closing the cage and begins singing "Baby Shark," which makes her laugh and helps her overcome her fear. They are locked in an underwater cage with many scary sharks, which causes Heather to breathe faster. Excited and amazed by the scene, she finally comes out with a smiling face and a new experience. Suddenly, Tucker pulls out a knife and stabs Greg in the neck, pushing him into the water while Heather screams. The scene shifts to a girl named Zephyr who is surfing. Afterward, she finds herself in a store where a man named Moses is waiting by her van, blackmailing her with security footage from the store. Zephyr decides to help but initially thinks he's a Mormon because of his clothes, but Moses is actually involved in real estate, selling apartments. They go to his car and notice a surfboard, which leads to shared interests in surfing. They officially meet, and Moses' car is ready, but they feel a connection before Moses leaves. He stays with her for a while, then throws the pin key outside. After the activity, Heather says she has started surfing because there's nothing else for her on the land and she is a private person. Moses leaves to prepare food for them, but when he returns, he finds empty space she has left. Zephyr finds a new parking spot and notices her pin key is missing, which leads her to a car that belongs to Tucker. He helps her by indicating what she is doing alone here. After helping her, Tucker leaves and Zephyr receives a message from Moses, who wants to join them. At that moment, Tucker returns to her covering her head with a bag, then ties her up and takes her with him to his place, during which Moses searches for her around the area. Zephyr wakes up realizing she has been kidnapped and tied to a bed, with Heather beside her who tells her they are on his boat and no one can help them. Zephyr searches for something to pick the lock and sees someone's name on the wall while Tucker relaxes outside fishing. Later, Moses goes to her van, looks like she is missing and reports her disappearance. He only knew her for a day and doesn't know her last name, so his story isn't very convincing. Back on the boat, Heather says her mother forbade her from going on this trip and that she should have listened, because this wouldn't have happened while Zephyr wanted to run away far from home. While they talk, Zephyr notices an underwire on Heather that could help open the lock. Using her powers, Zephyr tries to free herself, and Bruce brings food and water for both of them, revealing his dominance through the fear. After he leaves, Zephyr attempts to escape but feels dizzy from the drinks, and Heather faints. Bruce returns and praises her as a fighter. He takes both of them and prepares them for the upcoming show. Zephyr is tied up and will observe with Bruce as Heather is the bait for sharks. Bruce mentions that God is down there and cuts a piece of Heather's hair, then lifts it and places it just above the bloody water where sharks are waiting, while Heather is lowered into the water as a shark attacks and pulls her around, and Heather trembles because her leg is torn. Zephyr returns to her place and writes down her friend's name and her own, while Bruce celebrates his show and prepares a new one for Zephyr, who finds many names on the wall. Meanwhile, Moses finishes surfing and finds a broken surfboard on his way back. Zephyr loses a lot of fluid, which Bruce hints she will need strength for later, and she refuses her food order. However, she comes up with an idea to make her own weapon. Bruce watches yesterday's footage and prepares an injection for her, pretending she is sleeping so she can attack Bruce, stealing his keys and freeing herself. Bruce wakes up and chases her to the stairs, injecting her with the drug. Zephyr runs further and tries to call for help on the radio, unsuccessfully, then notices a nearby boat. She tries to call out but loses her strength, then throws Bruce's camera into the water, followed by herself, losing consciousness, and Bruce pulls her back. The next day, police are searching the beach for a blonde, which Moses mentioned, and he uses a camera app to scan her van and suspicious vehicle, which place he finds by searching on Google. Meanwhile, Tucker is shopping for a new camera. Moses goes to the address and investigates the surroundings, hearing a noise underneath. He breaks the window and enters, finding Zephyr. Tucker returns to his boat, and she warns him she's seeking help, but they come into conflict. Moses defends himself and attacks Bruce, furiously ready to finish him, but Dave helps while his dog runs towards Zephyr, leaving Tucker no choice but to kill him and change his next destination to the biggest shark. Zephyr is taken to a place across from Moses, who is the next target for Tucker's filming, who sets him up in the air above the sharks. Zephyr intervenes and wants to replace him, but Tucker doesn't care and starts filming. Zephyr tells him not to move because a bull shark is passing by. Tucker is surprised that nothing happens and pushes him back, stabbing him with a knife, causing Moses to bleed heavily. But right before action starts, Tucker notices a helicopter and cancels the filming, returning inside with Moses bleeding out. Zephyr tries to free herself, breaking her finger, but Tucker enters with a delivery, and she continues her attempt later, but her hand again can't pass through, so she bites her entire finger. Meanwhile, Tucker prepares an injection. When he returns, he only sees her finger, while Zephyr runs and closes the door. She starts the engine, but Tucker stops all functions and quietly approaches her. She fires a flare at him. The boat catches fire, and she escapes through a small window. Tucker catches her and attacks her, but Zephyr hits him with a frying pan and jumps into the water, where he watches her and gets into a boat to retrieve her, but Zephyr quickly swims to shore. Tucker catches up and stops her, causing her to faint and returning her to the boat, this time as the main character, with Moses watching. Tucker wakes her with water. Beneath her is the biggest shark, his sworn enemy, the one he survived as a child, which excites Tucker. He films the shark approaching Zephyr and arriving at the boat, where he pushes the shark away. Zephyr grabs a weapon, raises it, and rises above the water where Bruce scares her, and she falls fully underwater, swimming her way out but engage a big white shark which glances at her continuing own path. Zephyr finds her way from the back of the boat, waking quietly with a weapon and shoots at Bruce, knocking him into the water. Tucker swims to the boat, but the shark attacks him, and he rises from the water while the camera films. Carelessly, Zephyr is dragged underwater, and Moses loses consciousness and passes out. She returns, grabs a flare to attract attention to a nearby boat, which at the last moment turns back to rescue them. Moses wakes up, and they are safe in the end.